I just felt, I don't know, a lot of like love and peace. And it was like, I don't know, it's hard for me to say, but it was like he said, this is my church. You are forgiven. And when I felt forgiven, I literally felt like a weight was like lifted off of me. And it was a weight that I didn't even really feel like I had until it was lifted off of me.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. We are here with Kempton Green today of the exotic land of Idaho.
Way to go, Idaho!
And welcome.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you here. We're going to hear your story today. But before we do, we need some background on you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us, if you're comfortable, how old you are, if you're married or not, maybe where you're from, and have you been a member of the church your whole life, or were you a convert? Give us the rundown.
So I'm 22 years old, and I live in Nampa, Idaho. I was born into the church, but my family stopped going around when I was 12. Okay. There was a lot of family issues. My brother had passed away, and it was really hard on my parents, and there's some other stuff, and they ended up getting a divorce, and so we were kind of led away. My family is just having trouble, and when a lot of times when people go through a lot of traumas, it really tests them. So
sure. So around 12 years old, I assume you stopped going to church along with your family.
Yeah. Well, at the time, I think I was probably happy about it.
High five!
Yeah.
Sure.
When I was 12, I don't know if I really liked going, but time in between that, just 10 years. So I just recently started going back to church this last December, but my interest started peaking, before that.
What led you to come back?
It's like there was a lot of really small things that got me first. I was having a lot of trouble with just life in general, and I had a lot of questions, but so I started my job. I work night shift at Walmart, and we have temp workers every once in a while that come and work, and there was a kid that worked for us temporarily, and he just got back from his mission.
Okay.
And I remember being super curious because I didn't really remember that much from when I was 12, so I started asking him a lot of questions. I don't know if it really helped out that much. I don't know if he was super helpful, but I started to think about it because I was having trouble at the time. I was having like night terrors and stuff like that. And I was thinking about getting a blessing because the night terrors were a little intense.
Yeah. Overwhelming.
Yeah, a little bit overwhelming, and they were happening like every week. Mm-hmm. And I asked my dad if he had the number of, the bishop from the church that we used to go to, and he did. And I asked him if he'd come give me a blessing, and I asked another member, and they came to my house, and they gave me a blessing. And then after the blessing, it completely stopped. And I'm a little bit stubborn, so even though that had completely stopped, I'm like, oh, cool. And I was still curious about it. And at the time, I said I was agnostic, but that was just an excuse for myself so I could keep living the way that I was living, just to make it easier for my own self-conscience. I kind of always knew. I had spiritual experiences when I was younger, and I kind of was just pushing them away, I feel like. And after that, I wanted to start reading the Book of Mormon. I asked the kid about, some things because I had a lot of questions, and he told me, which was probably the most amount of help that he had given me, was to just read it myself. So I started reading the Book of Mormon and reading the Bible. And it's really funny because when I was reading the Book of Mormon, there was a lot of things I was like, oh, well, that sounds kind of crazy, when I would come across certain things. And there's some things that I thought I didn't like at the time, but it's really just because I didn't understand them. And that's why I thought that I didn't like it, because I didn't have a deep enough understanding. I was reading the Bible too, and I was just kind of like trying to make a decision. So I started praying, and I wanted to know what I should believe in, because I didn't really know if I should believe in the Book of Mormon or the Bible or even really follow religion at all.
Well, you turned to a smart guy.
Yeah, that's true.
For an answer.
Yeah, so I had read some stories about like people fasting, and I seen like the results with the people, talked about how much more it helps. So I decided to go on like a 2-day fast, like a 2 full day fast.
Wow.
But it wasn't like a full fast, so I was drinking water because I'm not going to go without water for 2 days. Yeah, that's a little intense. I was repenting and I was praying for guidance. I wanted to know what church I should really go to and I should believe.
Were there other options that you were looking at?
Whatever I was told. Literally, if Jehovah's Witnesses would have showed up, I probably would have been a Jehovah's Witness.
Okay.
I was just letting God send to me who he needed to send to me, because I decided to just have a complete open mind about it.
So you were just kind of saying, like, I'm open to whatever.
Yeah.
Try to put me where you want me to be.
Yeah, where you want me to be. So I go through like the 2 days of fasting, and the whole time I'm fasting, I'm praying the whole time. And I'm just praying about where I should be. And after the 2 days, so since I work night shift, I went to sleep. It's in the morning time, so I went to sleep probably about like 9. And when I woke up, it was the same day, and I had ended my fast on that day. And I went out into the kitchen, and there was cookies on the table, and there was a note. I picked the note up, and I guess the missionaries had came, but I was asleep. And it was the same day that I ended the fast, and it said, come read 3 Nephi with us.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa. I was like, that's really cool. So I guess I got my answer. So I decided to call the number and set up a meeting with the missionaries, and I love them. They're the best. They visit me all the time. They love coming over, and I could tell they kind of weren't expecting the call, because when I called them, they seemed a little bit caught off guard that somebody called them back because of the note, which I'm sure probably doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah, they love when that happens.
Yeah. It's like the best.
It's him.
I kind of told them, I was like, well, it's kind of crazy because I, just fasted and prayed for somebody to come, and you guys ended up coming on the same day. And they were like, oh, whoa, okay, like that's cool, because they were kind of like freaking out about it a little bit. And so we set up a meeting for them to come to my house. And after I had hung up the phone, this is like kind of like where it gets like a little bit more intense for me, because the feeling of the Spirit had like overcame me like really strongly after I had gotten off of the phone. And it was so strong that I felt like I couldn't like really even stand up. So I was kind of like going to the floor, and I just felt, I don't know, a lot of like love and peace. And it's hard for me to say, but it was like he said, this is my church. You are forgiven. And when I felt forgiven, I literally felt like a weight was like lifted off of me, and it was a weight that I didn't even really feel like I had until it was lifted off of me. And I'm sorry, it made me really emotional, because I felt him take it, and because I felt him take it, it made me realize that he has to carry that around. I guess it was like a lesson to me, because it really let me know that, what he did for us, and it really brought it into perspective for me in that moment. And it was just a really powerful experience, and I don't think I'm ever going to really be able to forget that too. And I've always wondered why I had that experience, but it must have been because it was something that I needed to learn and to be in the right spot, and to also share it with other people to maybe help them out too. I know not everyone is probably going to have an experience like that.
I love that visualization, that illustration of Christ taking that weight off of you, but then him having to carry that burden. I haven't really
and it made me feel very kind of like guilty in a way. But I know that he wants to do that for us.
Yeah.
That's something that he did because he loves us, and he's the only one that could have done it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a wonderful testimony.
A lot of gratitude, I
Yeah.
expect as well.
Yeah. My faith is extremely strong after that too.
Yeah, how could it not
It's
be?
very,
Yeah.
very hard for me to have a lot of doubts, but it's weird because after the experience, even though that it's that powerful, you still will.
Yeah.
You still will have some type of doubt towards the experience that
Yeah.
it's just what your mind does and what your brain does. So
And you have to kind of decide if it really was what you remember it as, or if
Yeah,
it was
well, that's
not
why-
the spirit, or what it was.
if something like that happens to you, you got to write it down.
Yep.
You got to
Oh, yeah.
write it down and think about it, I think, pretty frequently
Yep.
when things happen to you.
Yeah.
So you started meeting with the missionaries, I assume,
Yes.
and that went well, I assume.
Yeah, I loved it. It was awesome. They were pretty surprised because they were like, oh, so like how much, like, do you know, like you said that like you started reading like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, oh, like I think I was like, oh, I'm on Alma, and they were like, what? they
Wow.
were like, that's really fast. She was like, I just started reading it, this January, because I think that's when we started like really meeting. But she was like, I'm only on, I don't remember what chapter or what book or chapter she said she was on, but
You
they were
said January,
surprised.
like this,
Yeah,
like
This
this
month?
month? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're starting to go back to church. Did you start going back to church before or after you started meeting with the missionaries?
after.
After.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what's next? There's not much time between then and now, but what's been going on this month?
So I did get my patriarchal blessing.
Okay.
so
Wow,
far.
that's awesome.
So that was amazing. It was a really good experience. I loved that.
That's awesome. So how's your ward? Were they receptive to you?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people that actually recognized me that still were in the same
Oh,
ward,
no way.
and they came up and talked to me. Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
Wow.
So I wasn't very lonely there. So there's people that I already knew. So they just
Mhm.
came and sat next to me and talked to me. So
Good.
which is nice. I actually started going with my nephew recently too because he asked me to start going.
He asked you.
Cool.
Yeah.
He was just like, I see you going to this church, and what's this all about?
Well,
type
he
of
asked
thing?
me to keep going. Well, I asked him. I was like, "Do you want to go?" And then so I asked him, but
Okay.
he asked me to keep going.
Okay.
So he's been coming with me the last few weeks.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Is he about your same age, or?
He just turned 12 a few days ago.
Cool.
He hasn't been baptized in the church, so I'm excited because I want to baptize him.
That'd be
Oh,
cool.
that would be so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So, priesthood ordination?
A few months away.
Okay.
Yeah. I have the Aaronic priesthood, but I don't have the Melchizedek priesthood.
Okay. So,
That's
what does
awesome.
what does your family think about you going back to church?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
So my parents they're okay with it because they were members, but my wife is not really feeling it. It's something new to her, so it's
Mhm.
kind of a struggle, especially because she isn't religious at all.
Mm-hmm.
And she's also from Korea, and like a lot of their main religion is mostly Buddhist, and also there's Christians there too.
Mhm.
A little bit of a struggle for her.
Yeah.
Something very new.
What's the dynamic like between you two since you're a mixed faith marriage?
It's a little bit difficult.
Okay.
It is difficult, especially because there's a lot of things that I stopped doing or I won't do anymore that she doesn't really understand.
Oh, okay.
And it just takes patience.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just got to explain. And she's trying her best. I would say she's doing good for somebody that hasn't really, heard about it.
How did you find our channel?
It was a recommendation. One of these other videos that actually helped me out a lot. I don't know what channel it was, but this girl was having trouble with some parts of the Book of Mormon. And it was specifically like the parts that I actually was having trouble with at the time. Like when the Lamanites were cursed to have dark skin.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was a huge thing for me because I didn't really understand that.
Yeah.
And that video helped me out a lot. And then through the recommendations in that video, I found like your guys' stuff through there. And then I've been addicted to your guys' YouTube channel mostly out of like all of them. Your guys' is my favorite.
Yes. Well, cool. You talked about patience being the key between you and your wife, and I think that that's really important. We do have a lot of people that come on the show whose family members are really hesitant and defensive at first, but over time, it seems like things get better as they see, their loved ones changing for the better
Yeah.
as they try to live the gospel and whatnot.
Yeah, she's definitely seen a big change in me too. But yeah, it's just mostly patience.
Yeah.
It's
So how have you seen yourself change as you've come back?
a lot. Since I wasn't in the church, a lot of the things that are accepted and normalized outside of the church with like other people, like pornography, drugs, alcohol, especially in my generation, it depends on where you live too. I never really liked it, like doing any of those things or like watching pornography or any of that, but those were things that I had been addicted to pornography and stuff. And even when you're not really like going to church, you never really like it, you know?
Like you feel it's wrong.
Yeah, you just have a natural feeling that it's wrong.
Yeah.
And you're kind of repulsed by it, but it's an addiction.
Yeah.
And after that experience that I had, it was almost like I was healed. It's like weird because I could just stop doing it. And before it was something that I thought I could never stop doing. But after I had that experience, and I felt like it strengthened me a lot. And
Your desires shifted.
my
it
desires
sounds like.
shifted, but also I felt like I was getting a lot of help.
Wow. That's awesome.
And I feel like the pathways of my brain, I feel like have even changed from it. Like my thought processes are not even the same. I don't have the same triggers I did before. And it's like almost like I was like actually like purged in that moment
yeah.
too.
So you can actively
you, like,
see
feel it.
the Lord's hand in your life right now.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Well, welcome back, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a
have you.
question. Would you have any advice for anybody who is in a similar situation as you, or somebody who may be thinking about coming back to the church?
Prayer and reading the scriptures definitely help out a lot. And it's something that is talked about a lot, but people don't do. When you sincerely pray and you're asking and you read the scriptures, the answers are going to be given to you eventually. It might not come in the form that you want it. Searching for his kingdom spiritually is the best way to search for it.
I love that prayer and scripture study work.
And it sounds like your spouse was bringing up a lot of challenging topics. Were those things that you had to work through? And if so, how did you do that? Or were they not just not a big deal for you?
I had trouble with stuff like polygamy and other things like that, but when I did more research into it and read up more about it, I gotten a deeper understanding about it. It's not completely like
Self-questions.
Yeah.
Sure. I think we all do. But I think that that's really good what you're saying. Like you mentioned like the spiritual side of things, like praying and reading your scriptures, but it feels like you're also talking about doing research and looking at, church history and things like that to be informed about it.
I also think that when you look for God's kingdom in a worldly manner, it doesn't really work. That's not going to work. If you look for his kingdom, like he says that his kingdom is spiritual. So if you look for it spiritually, you're going to find it. But if you look for it in the world, you're going to have trouble. And it's probably going to lead you in the wrong direction. And that's why the Holy Ghost and praying is the best way to find what you need to find.
Wow.
Love that.
Yeah.
Great
That
advice.
is great.
If people have questions for you, where can they go? Maybe just leave them in the YouTube comments.
Yeah, if they leave them in the YouTube comments, I can reply to them.
Okay, cool.
Great.
Well, thank you so much for
Yes,
being
thank
here
you.
today. This has been great.
No problem.
Welcome back to the church.
Thank you.
I hope you stick around for, till you die.
Yeah, me too. I also hope that.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. Guys, if you have questions for Kempton, leave them in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hate to ask that, but just reminding you in case you haven't done that yet. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.